I never heard of this movie.
Oh, I heard of it, but I never
I've
saw
heard
it.
of it.
And
Yeah.
it's hard to talk about this without mentioning the other one. So let's just not mention the other one yet. But if nothing else, I was amused because, oh, this is Marilyn Monroe trying to act again. And it's like the standard
I would
studio
say act
popular.
originally, but
Well, I
sure.
mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, and I get that this is early in her career, but this seemed like a standard, what they were, cranking them out, the standard studio mid-budget pot boiler.
Yeah, it was like it was like a contract piece. She came in.
Yeah.
It was the same year as All About Eve.
52, I maybe.
No, she
Yeah.
was a walk-on in this one. This was one of her first ones where she had a starring role in it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But All About Eve was before this.
Yeah,
Right.
but
She
that
had a
was
supporting role. Is this her first? This is her first starring role.
It's her first dramatic starring role.
First dramatic starring role.
That's more
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I mean,
And then after this, I think she did Niagara,
yeah, maybe.
according to
That's right.
Blonde. According to Blonde, but I don't believe anything in that movie. But we'll get to that.
I don't. I mean,
Specifically, we're talking about that, but yeah, okay.
I mean, she didn't. I didn't think she embarrassed herself. I mean, again, because
Oh.
like everybody else in it is such
I had
a
a quarter pounder.
caricature. I've never, what was his name? Richard Widmark. I mean, he's like a lot of eyebrow acting there.
Mhm.
I actually thought, I mean,
Guy who's most famous for being the stoic guy in westerns.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I actually went to school with this kid.
He was in a bunch of World
wow.
War II flicks.
Yeah, grade
Yeah.
school with this kid. Seeing Anne Bancroft.
This almost is a World War II movie, actually, with
It
all
is,
of
yeah.
the
A lot of it's informed by World War II. About
with all the discussion of like being a pilot and of bombers and stuff
Right.
like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But
And
Anne
Whitmark's
Bancroft,
character
Anne
stayed
Bancroft,
in the UK.
Anne
for a
Bancroft
year.
is amazing in this movie and is
She is really
horribly
quite good.
underused.
well, yeah.
Like,
Well, she remember she introduced her in this one. It's her very first film. So
I know, and
so
she's
yeah.
horribly underused.
She's like an ingenue in this. And I mean, those songs that she sang, none of them were particularly good.
No, they're the opposite of good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
They're
guess what?
like-
Music back then was
fucking
bad.
terrible.
well, with her,
But not all music was bad, but all this music was bad.
But it doesn't matter. She's great though. Like all of the scenes that she has with Richard Widmark are amazing.
Yeah.
This scene where she goes after Marilyn Monroe's character and is like, "Hey, you don't want to do that," and all that
Yeah.
other stuff.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
she's so fucking good in this movie. Like it's one of those things where to me it's just like, God damn, focus more on her character. Like
But
well,
But it's really a Maryland vehicle.
well, this
Of
right,
course
and
it is.
she's playing a fucking psychopath that ties a kid to a bed.
Yes.
Like this movie goes places that I was actually kind of surprised.
Me too, man. And I started to like really enjoy it when I realized that okay, this is about Marilyn and she's crazy. It's like that's her character and she's
Really crazy.
the movie kind of almost moved into like David Lynch territory. You know what I mean? I mean, it was weird. She was so weird. She was just this weird presence that defined what this movie is.
There's that scene where the kid climbs out the window and then they're like, oh my God, they're gonna push the fucking kid out the window.
I really thought they were.
I
really thought she would.
But this you could feel the studio's presence in terms of them kind of tinkering with new actors in this one because Marilyn Monroe and Anne Bancroft were relatively new. They just got signed like 2 years before,
right?
And they're trying to figure out what to do with Anne Bancroft. Obviously, is she can be like a ingenue? She can be a singer. She can do dramatic stuff. So they used to plug them into movies early on so they could figure out where their strengths were. And with Marilyn, this is so interesting because they showed a little walk on in the other one, All About Eve. But in this one, I think that it's Marilyn, take Marilyn, subtract the Va Va Voom effect, because that's in all of her other movies. She's just this Va Va Voom girl. Is like, super sexy. They don't prefer blondes, that kind of thing, right? But this one, she just gets a chance to play a crazy person.
Yeah.
And they were trying that out. It says, okay, that's not this sexy thing. Let's just let her act and see where it goes. And I think it's one of her best performances she's ever done.
Maybe that's why I think I prefer it to like Niagara, where it's still a sort of a turgid potboiler. In fact, I think this is a much better film than Niagara. Mm-hmm. But in that, it's all about her sex appeal. It's like how she can manipulate men and stuff. And that to me was not as interesting as this.
Well, she's trying hard not to manipulate men in this. Like she's just trying to find Philip. Like,
Yeah.
and that's so
It does make
distressing.
sense, yes.
Right.
It's so distressing how like from the beginning when he walks in the door, it's just like Philip, oh Philip, and in the way that the other movie will be terrible about that, this movie is great about just like, yeah, like you you've lost touch with reality because this man you love just disappeared one day, and like I think she's really good at that. Like, the female leads in this movie are so much better than the male leads in this movie. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
and
Except for the old lady that calls the hotel cop.
but I wouldn't
The hotel
consider.
detective.
Yeah, the
The hotel
hotel
busy.
cop is a whole other thing
Yeah.
too. Also,
Although
but
you don't
like,
you don't see busybody characters like that in movies anymore. Just like there's like, what's going on there? This is outrageous.
She
What is
was like
happening?
the archetype for Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched. Right?
right.
She's there to enforce the social order. That's her
Yeah.
job in life, man.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it turns out that she's right, which makes the whole thing even
Yeah, it's very
weirder.
inverts the whole
Like,
thing. And
Well,
one of
she
the-
was finally right.
yeah.
right.
Also,
No.
one of the things that haunts this film is that
When she turns to her husband and she's like, "Now are you glad you came with me?" Like,
yeah,
it's
that
And he's like, no.
Yes.
I'll say though, they deglam Marilyn for this a lot, obviously compared to later stuff. But I mean, the camera loves her.
she's just amazing. I mean,
Take-
just you can't well, you really can't take your eyes off her when she's on screen. She's just like, and she could work her face really well in this. Later on, seriously, she's like doing the thing that Ana de Armas is doing in the other movie. She's kind of moving her mouth a little bit and trying to like keep her expressions around her chin and her mouth. This one, she feels more relaxed. She feels more like a real person in this
when
than
she
almost
comes out
anything
with
else.
the razor blade and she's
Yeah.
got the
Fuck.
razor blade up to her neck
Uh-huh.
and she's just like,
Mhm.
and you're like, yeah, you're gonna do that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you have that
believe
moment
you're gonna
of
know it.
like, this is obviously still under the Hays Code, but you have that moment of like, oh, she's actually gonna slit her throat, isn't she? Like, and
Who was
then,
she
of course,
studying with that when she was studying acting at this era? Was she with Adler and the Actor Studio, or was she doing stuff in Los Angeles? Because her acting is, I thought,
I have
It's
no
not
idea.
bad
if
by
this
the
is- if
standards
this
of
is
this kind of
what-
movie.
this is a high watermark in 1952. I mean, Jesus, don't have to improve it. It's really great, But I thought she did a great job.
I also like this entire scene where
Oh, the telephone calls across the
Yeah, wasn't that nice? Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Also, this is an interesting bottle movie. It's all in one hotel,
Yeah.
and it's kind of neat.
it must have been really cheap to shoot, but I thought they made the most. Like they built you could tell they built like 4 or 5 sets. They get
Yeah.
one big set for the room where Anne Bancroft is singing, and then in the lobby.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The cowboy themed bar.
Oh, back then they built everything, so they didn't just shoot.
That cowboy themed bar was on the lot.
I'm down, no doubt.
And they just showed up and just put cowboy shit
yeah, of course
around it. And we're just like, all right, now it's a cowboy bar.
well, that saves some money. I think
And
we
then,
can get some.
last week it was in fucking, I don't know, Casablanca or whatever.
Right,
Yeah, right.
Like,
Well, that's a great thing about the studio days is they just build us everything. There's no location. You
It
can.
wasn't shot at Warner Brothers, though. It
No,
was
this
a
was the Fox
Xanax
lot
flick.
over on
Yeah,
Pico.
Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that was an existing set that they just showed up and
I'm
put
sure, yeah.
just
Dressed
put a
it
bunch of ceramic cowboy hats and then
Cowboy hat ashtrays.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then a horseshoe on the door of the bathroom.
There was some bucking bronco art on the wall too.
Also,
yeah.
Yes.
back then it was just one phone call to Western Props over like in the valley. It says, we need a cowboy set. Okay, just put it on a big truck and throw it out there. They had all the set flats for this, all the doors and all the hallways. They all existed in Sing in a big studio back in the studio. They just had to build it all on the go, man. This film was made for nothing, really. It was easy.
they shot it probably in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, I mean, they was cranking these things out by the dozens at the time. But again, you got the.
Well, yeah, it is a B flick, right?
I can't remember if this is about.
I think this is a C flick.
I would
really.
see this as I would have thought this was like mid-level.
It's worth looking up. I think this came out as the second half of a double bill. I'm not
Right.
sure.
Which
Look
is
it up.
technically a B film.
Yeah, which means a big picture. Yeah.
You have the benefit of the perspective of knowing what she became later. I mean,
Yeah,
again,
right.
Bancroft as well. Like just as a wow, look at this, their first thing right out of
Yeah.
the.
It might be that no one would remember this movie if not for the cast, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
again, I will say Anne Bancroft is so underserved in this movie for only being in it for the short period of time that she is, and she is so good in it. And Marilyn's good in it too, and Widmark is good. As much as I want to give him shit, like he's good in it too, but it's just like
I
Anne
think he's never
Bancroft.
better than he is in that telephone, flirtation scene
Yeah.
across.
Yeah.
That might be the high watermark for his
And
performance.
I think Elisha
Anne
Cook
Bancroft's
Jr.
just
is
on a
good,
different
too.
I
level.
was going to
He
bring
is.
him up.
She's
He's
a hero.
himself.
Yeah.
He is, Jim.
This guy, Elijah Cook, like
Elijah Cook. Yeah.
Never bad.
That poor guy, just he's trying to get his niece a
The
job.
Gunsel.
I would argue I would remember this movie if for no other reason that I was surprised how dark it got.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, that's that
Yeah.
noir thing, man. This is considered to be a film noir.
It's
That's
dark and it's weird.
and
dark. They tie the kid to the fucking
And I
bed.
think
Yes,
with
and you
I know.
don't see it. It happens off camera.
Hold on. She
Yeah.
does not tie her to the bed.
She ties her up.
her up and
Right.
lays her on the bed.
That's right.
Different.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
kid was
That's
in.
the Hays Code difference.
Because the kid flips off of the bed and tries to call for help
Right.
with the phone, which
Right.
is a whole
Like,
other thing.
Every time the kid came out, and like I started cringing because like, oh man, like what, like this is not going to be good. This is not
No, not really.
What are they going to do to this kid now? And like the fact that I'm having this reaction to a movie made in 1952, I was surprised by that.
That's pretty good for Chris because we penetrated the old timey barrier there.
This is
Yeah.
like,
Also, this is like a 71-minute long film, I think. It's really short.
74.
74-minute thing is okay. I admit that actually, even because it's so short, the middle kind of got a bit
It does drag a little.
Little
saggy.
and dragging in the middle because that's just how the style was back then. Is
what's the middle act? The middle act is what? Just them mostly.
When he
comes over to her,
the middle act is actually moving the pieces into place. Basically, that's what's
Yeah.
happening in the middle part, and it's a little dull. But the thing is, the end is explosive, and the beginning is amazing in terms of like just how it's set up.
Yeah,
It's just an old movie, and that old movies did that.
Okay, so
let's talk about the ending for a second, though, because I mean, the ending with Marilyn standing at the elevator door with the razor to her neck, that's great. Anne Bancroft intervenes. That's all good.
Mhm.
But basically, then they wrap it up in like 30 seconds. It's like, oh, Anne Bancroft loves him now, and they're back together. The end. So.
No, no.
Oh, maybe you're not a total heartless piece
Other
of shit.
people's
Exactly. I mean, it became Marilyn just
no.
wait. But Marilyn just became a vehicle for them to get back together and for Richard Widmark's character to prove he had a heart.
Other people's craziness
That's true,
makes
but
our love
it's not as instant as you're saying.
Pretty short.
There is the scene before that where he's telling the story to her.
Yes.
And she's starting to understand that he cares more than she thinks he does.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
That's
I
true.
actually think
I'll
that
give you that.
I think that scene's really good of the two of them having that conversation and her just kind of being like, oh wow, really you
stayed here and did that.
You're interested in this and like you're trying to protect this kid and stuff like that.
It's an unusually long. It's a secondary story arc, and it's unusually effective because it starts with that Dear John letter at the beginning of the film.
Yeah,
and then she basically lays it out. Yeah, I'm going to leave you. You're just a really heartless little bastard. And at the end, of course, again, other person's craziness makes our love stronger, I think is the message of this thing. But
Yes.
he sees her.
That happens though. That's a real thing.
She sees him in action, and it's like, oh, okay, he's actually kind of a normal human being. I can hang out with him, and that's nice. It's a good ending. Although,
yeah, and as he says, like so many of us did.
Yeah.
When she's talking about how Philip's plane went down going to Hawaii, like he has that understanding of like, well, I'm the one who survived, like I'm the one who made it through all of that bullshit. Did you fly a bomber? Well, who didn't? Like I think his characterization of that particular way of understanding how the world works is a little bit better than maybe some other people would have done in this situation. Like, and again, Anne Bancroft is just fucking amazing.
There's, this is also this is, was it post-war, World War II, right?
Yeah.
The term PTSD wasn't invented yet, right?
No,
Right.
it was called
Shell
shell
shock.
shock.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, this was all over this film, and even Marilyn Monroe, who was like her character, who was a civilian, is suffering from it.
Yeah, she has PTSD
Yeah,
from
she has
her
PTSD.
fiance dying.
Yeah, I know. And the thing
Well,
is, it's just like,
and
so
the,
most
the
of
guy didn't die in the war. He died like the year after the war ended in a transit
Flying a
accident
bomber
Yeah.
to
to
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Right.
Yeah.
But man, that's messed up. So
Which
that's,
would be way worse. Like it's like
of course. It's like you don't even get to be
Yeah,
a
no
hero
glory.
then.
Yeah.
it's
No
like the
glory.
last episode of Band of Brothers where they're talking
Yeah.
about guys getting like hit by trucks and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it's just like,
Mm.
yeah, people keep dying even though like the
But
war
we're
is
not at
over.
war.
Yeah. And also this begs the question of like, one of the things about film noirs is that you're happy, you have a happy ending, but you have to think about what happens when after the curtain goes down. What happens after this film ends? Marilyn
Yeah.
goes,
Let's not think about
5 minutes
what happens to her in the New York State psychiatric system.
well, yeah, I know that's not good. Hopefully they'll send to Oregon at least, maybe, but like the way she started out, but I doubt it.
I like how she grabs onto the cop's thumb as
Yeah.
he's like trying to usher her out of the hotel.
I know that's good stuff, and it's like you realize that some people in this film are not going to have a happy ending, and that's just
No, and I think
Yeah.
Witcher would mark mouths off the cab driver 5 minutes after this movie over, and Bancroft changes her mind.
probably, yeah. Or once they get married, things kind of
Or
change.
he marries her and then hits her.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Well, I mean, I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed this.
okay. You have to imagine my thumb at 11 o'clock.
All right. Yeah, I liked it. That was good. It's not a huge movie. It's a little movie, and it's a good little movie.
It's a small movie.
But like I said, this
yes.
was Marilyn minus the Vava Voom, and I appreciate that. She really contributed something, and this showed it. And it's great.
I just wanted more Anne Bancroft.